Alright, so he's already said far right. Far right people love Warhammer. Because the setting? Or, you know. I like the setting. But yes, Vaush. Mr. Horsecock. Let's see what your brilliant take is. No, I'm not putting it at anything less than 200%. I'm not torturing myself like that. Okay. You should be able to get through it in 20.
Right people, and then I want to talk about why I think the people who like it for those reasons are really missing the point of that setting, okay? So, Warhammer 40k, get your soys out of the way now, because if you soy every time I say it, you're going to be soying the entire time I talk about it, you know?
So, is that him acknowledging to his audience that he knows that they don't like this kind of stuff? I'm playing Overwatch in the background because I can't stand just listening to him yap.
Warhammer 40k is basically like a broad, like, media environment. It's like the Marvel Cinematic Universe where they've got the comics and the movies and the games. It's like that. It's basically set in the future, about 40,000 years in the future, so
Yes.
coincidentally, where the entirety of the galaxy is being fought over by humans and a bunch of alien races. And it's cool, and there are tabletop games and video games.
Okay. He's already missed something. God, he said, he sort of glossed over the fact that a large part of the 40k universe, like, to the point where we've worked with Xenos, which is aliens, is literal chaos gods, demons. Like, demonic entities that are real. I don't know if he's trying to miss that point on purpose. I think so. Don't quote me, but I think. Or maybe he just sees them as the good guys. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna get somewhere down the road where he's just gonna say, they're the good guys. Okay. It's 57 seconds in. Okay.
Games, and a lot of the stuff surrounding it is really awesome. I've played tabletop Warhammer. I've painted miniatures back there, and unpainted miniatures. Video games. I really like Battlefleet Gothic Armada, and I've played a lot of Total War Warhammer 2.
See, that's what's great about Warhammer. Even like a porn brain-rotted person can understand that it's a great setting.
Though that is Warhammer Fantasy, not 40k. There's a lot of good stuff there. And if any of you are interested
Okay, so he likes fantasy, not 40k.
in examining it, I strongly encourage you to do so, because there's stuff in there that I think appeals to pretty much anyone. In particular, the subreddit Sig Marxism is a left-leaning Warhammer 40,000 subreddit.
Oh, fuck. Sig? Does he mean Sieg? Does he mean Sieg? I think so. Sig Marxism? What? I don't know how. I'm not quite sure why. The volume's already turned up, guys. Let's see, volume. Sound mixer, maybe? Brave browser. It's already turned up. Whatever.
Which I think is pleasant and nice because it gets around some of the elements of the community that I will talk about in a second. So here's the basic story, and I'm skipping over like everything, so forgive me, but the basic story is this, okay? Humanity existed as it did in our world, and then we fought a bunch and invented faster than light travel and expanded across the galaxy, and it was super cool, okay? The age of technology. We invented stuff, we spread out, we had a great time, okay? But then, oopsie doopsie, it turns out that psychics and magic are real, and magic comes from hell, and hell is everywhere, just barely beyond a thin veil of power that you can transpose.
Okay, so he got that part.
Well, people started getting psychic powers and doing cool shit like blowing up entire cities and turning everyone's skin inside out, and they didn't know how to control their powers, and humanity got really, really bad really quickly, and we were spread all over the galaxy, and we had no way of dealing with these issues.
He missed the point where there are lots of psychers, but psychers being magic people. But there's like a really good portion of them that can't control their powers. Like, lots of them being fed to the God Emperor. Like, they suffer from their powers. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm so magic. Like, oh, so cool. Like, they're actually suffering. And he's just like, oh, we had all this magic and it was so cool. At least that's what I got.
What happened then was the Age of Strife. 5,000 years or so of humanity tearing itself apart, of warp storms encompassing the galaxy so communities couldn't contact each other, planets couldn't hail their home planets, and starships couldn't go into certain systems, and just everything fell to shit, you know? And then, around 30,000 years since the birth of Christ, a guy called the Emperor was born, or maybe just made himself evident to humanity, and he was super powerful and super cool and super knowledgeable, and he was like, hey, I'm going to unite humanity in a great crusade. So he did that. First he conquered Earth, called Terra in the future, and then he sent out a bunch of super soldiers across the galaxy to reunite all of humanity and try to turn it into one great Imperium of man. And the Emperor was a couple of things. Well, he was fiercely secular. The Emperor of mankind proposed that...
He did not mention AI. Oh yeah, he didn't. Fuck. Like, he didn't mention how we had AI in the Warhammer universe, then it tried to kill us, and that's why there's no... there's not really any computers unless you can plug your Magos's brain into the wall. He did entirely skip over that. Thank you so much, chat. I hate this.
His agents spread the Imperial truth. And the Imperial truth was that there is no God. There are no superstitions, no demons, no angels, no God. There was the material universe and nothing else. One thing the Emperor felt was that with a universe as big as it is, humans had an unfortunate tendency to reduce themselves to superstition when given the...
Hold up.
Well, he was fiercely secular. The Emperor of mankind proposed that his agents spread the Imperial truth. And the Imperial truth was that there is no God. There are no superstitions, no demons.
Apparently, the Chaos Gods are just not real, and neither are their minions. Like, literally not real. Sorry, they're just not real. Is he going to mention the point where he realized that faith is direly important to keep people hopeful, to keep people coexisting? And that he actually, the God Emperor, had such a conversation with one of the last priests on Earth. I don't know if he actually thought of that.
No angels, no God. There was the material universe and nothing else. One thing the Emperor felt was that with a universe as big as it is, humans had an unfortunate tendency to reduce themselves to superstition when given the chance. And he felt that hurt humanity. So he suggested that, no, we should militarily enforce secular values. The Great Crusade went out and essentially found and reunited humanity, and when they found religions, they would crush it. They would kill entire, clergy classes, burn the priest cities to the ground, destroy them.
I mean, I guess. But then this is all before the God Emperor realized how important religion is to keep people from falling apart, and how vital the idea of belief is, that it can even heal Adeptus Sororitas just by praying from a Necron, like, from a Necron attack that could just disintegrate you entirely.
Bomb cathedrals. They would do everything that they could. And the Great Crusade went out further and further. And some people talk about the politics of this age, the Great Crusade, which was when humanity, for the first time in thousands of years, seemed like it had a future, And there were elements of the Imperium of Man that were very far right at that time, and there were elements that were pretty left-leaning, and then there were elements that don't really work within our modern understanding of politics. See, the left and the right, politically, are really relative terms, and our understanding of politics here on Earth, in reality today, are informed by the material conditions that we live in. We have one planet that we control. But 10,000 years in the future, the systems of politics that we understand today might be made utterly irrelevant by changes in technology and changes to our communication and our culture. I'll say this much. In 30,000
I mean, in 30,000 years, if we're talking about the Warhammer universe, like, belief is still important, religion is still important, and that's why he became the God Emperor. even he acknowledged that to the last priest of Terra. Which is why, like, he permits the... Why he permits... Space Marines are called angels. I mean, but I don't know if he actually thinks of that stuff. Give me a second. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm pressing unpause.
Nobody will use the word socialism, okay? Nobody will use the word socialism or capitalism. The world set before us that far in time will be so alien to us that our modern systems of understanding political action will not apply. There will be other battles to fight. There will be other things to care about. There will be other issues to concern yourself with. You know? That's not to say the fundamental underlying issues, equality versus hierarchy, might not still be important. My opinion makes it will be, but it'll take a different shape. So with the Imperium of Man, circa the Great Crusade, was it left or right leaning? Well, some stuff was pretty right leaning. First of all, due process was more of a suggestion than anything. The military leaders that were sent out, the Primarchs, had a ton of control over the behavior of their armies and the world they subjugated. Some of them would treat the world they subjugated really, really well, you know, and some of them really wouldn't. There were Primarchs that would attempt to use diplomacy to negotiate with long-lost human colonies, and then there were Primarchs that would send down engines of blood and fire to raise the planets into nothing, so the survivors had no choice but to comply. So, with that respect, the action of delegating...
Yeah, Night Lords did that a lot. Fear, terrorism, blah blah blah. You know, maybe he would like... No, Hassan would like Night Lords, now that I said that. There's a little plush in the corner, that's you guys!
Overwhelming political jurisprudence
That's
to military
you.
officials, that's pretty right-leaning. It's also not something that happens today. You know why? Because right now, in the modern world, anyone on Earth can call anyone else on Earth and have it be picked up within a fraction of a second.
Yeah. I mean... There's Astra Telepatha, but there has to be like a whole little ritual. There needs to be like people hooked up to monitors and used as batteries. Not monitors, sorry. Just hooked up with their brains to stuff. It's hard to explain if I didn't show you a picture. Okay. Oh, hey, bro. I'm gonna play in a second, but I mean, I know seeing his face is rather painful. It hit only me. She hit only me. Okay.
Nowadays, you don't have to delegate a bunch of authority to generals because the political leaders are always a phone call away. But when the armies are separated by tens of thousands of light years, well, to what extent is it legitimate to give deference to military leaders? I don't have a hard answer. It's a fictional story. I don't have any hardline answer, but it's an interesting question. There's some other stuff there that's definitely very far right, very authoritarian. For example, the Emperor of Mankind was the undisputed master of Emperor of Mankind. There was no democracy. Democracy was not a thing. The Emperor controlled everything. Planets were controlled by planetary governors who were appointed by the Council of Terra, which was basically just a group of human civilians who interpreted the will of the Emperor and gave it out.
Hey! No, they're handpicked, like, they're bureaucrats, but they just didn't, like, random guy off the street. I pick you. Go. I choose you. Pokemon, go. That is not how that works. And I can't believe he actually just said that. He's acting as if it's just like... Oh, well, I think that guy's alright. I will pick the one with the blue hair. Okay. Pressing play.
Nothing was democratic. It was all authoritarian. Directly authoritarian.
Yeah.
With varying degrees of, you know, administrative due process and checks and balances. So, for example, early on in the Great Crusade, there were times when bad behavior on the part of military leaders was checked and criticized. And that's cool. But there were other times...
Yes, thank you, Pathfinder Paladin. They are bureaucrats, but the Emperor picked them. It is not just like... He makes it so flippant. It's so frustrating. But whatever. I mean, he doesn't know much.
Times when that didn't happen, and that's not cool. There were times when the Emperor sent out journalists to accompany these militaries and encourage them to be truthful and honest in their interpretation of events, which is good. Free speech and free journalism and free press are worthwhile left-leaning values. But they also faced heavy censorship to make sure that morale maintained in these great massive...
The idea that the Emperor of Mankind would tell journalists to be honest and truthful is genuinely one of the fucking funniest things I've ever heard in my life.
Galactic Wars. The thing is, the Imperium of Man was never at its best left-leaning. At best, it was a benevolent monarchy. It was a benevolent totalitarian dictatorship. Because the Emperor was supposed to be benevolent. The most consistent narratives about the Emperor of Man was that he was supposed to legitimately be above men. Gracious and humanitarian and loving, just in control of trillions of people. So, you know, the math is a bit tough at that scale. But with time, things got a lot worse. The long story short of it is that there was a betrayal, some of the Primarchs rebelled, they killed the Emperor, set the galaxy aflame, and left what was remaining of the Imperium of Man.
Okay, thank you, Vaush, for acknowledging that the most prosperous Imperium is not left-leaning. I will give you points for that.
Essentially to wallow in thousands and thousands of years of wicked superstition, bureaucracy, and misery. Essentially, when the leadership of the Emperor was taken away, when he was killed, the narrative of the story kind of reaffirms the idea that humanity can't really live without a leader to aspire to, if that makes any sense. Or, to put it another way, humanity needed the Emperor to keep it on track. And in the absence of the Emperor, humanity fell back into superstition. It fell back into the Imperial cult. Whereas the Imperial truth was all about promoting secularism, the Imperial cult venerated the Emperor, then known as the God Emperor.
Yeah, truth and the Imperium, as a dear lover of the Imperium of Mankind and the God Emperor, truth and the Imperium don't really fit in the same sentence, honestly.
As the master of mankind and the spiritual divine leader of all of humanity. In the
He
modern
is.
40K setting, they are so devoted to this imperial cult that you, your family, and the city that your family lives in can be purged from orbit if it's found out that there are people within your city who are explicitly not of the belief that the Emperor is a god. Entire planets and cities have been committed with fire just because they disagreed with the religious, you know, the preacher, the religious deification.
It's not just a random
Imperium
thing.
Is incredibly far right in almost every imaginable way. In terms of ecclesiarchy, well, disagree with the ecclesiarchy. In almost every imaginable way, the modern 40K is incredibly far right. Overwhelmingly so.
Yes.
One person spamming. Gee, they were really spamming. My god. Thought like a bunch of people were spamming spirit signs, but it turns out it was one person. Anyway, there's a reason why I'm getting to all this. Basically, the modern universe of 40K is really complicated to talk about politically because there isn't only the Imperium of Man, there's the million planets they control. The universe of 40K operates as a kind of space feudalism, where planets are allowed to operate semi-autonomously as long as they pay their taxes to the Imperium of Man and they commit military forces to them. And that's about it, you know? So, some planets are well-run and have democracies within their own government.
It's not hiding the truth out of malice. The truth is obscured because in 40K, mass hysteria could rile up the population. I mean, it could do more than rile up the population. If there's enough instability, the Chaos Gods will just pounce on that entirely. We don't know entirely for sure if the Emperor liked being worshipped. Yeah, he might say, don't worship me, but during the days of the cult, he didn't stop him. That is true. Yeah. See? I mean, and like... Even when Gilliman confronted him, you know, he kind of ended up saying what he really thought. Like, half, like, sad, half, I am God. But, yeah.
Governments. And then there are other planets that are brutal beyond the wildest imagining of human beings. There are planets where you could be born and live and die and live a life that's not that different from our own in terms of quality of life. And there are worlds where fetuses are harvested from birth mothers so they can be trained in the use of firearms at the age of 5 and then sent off to die in war at 15.
Yeah, let's go Krieg! Whoop whoop!
While wearing the gear that's been passed down through 17 generations of guard before them. It really depends where you're born. Yeah, Krieg. It really, really, really depends. Some planets are livable, but most of them have been choked black and yellow with the smog of the imperial pollution. There are planets...
It's almost like, oh, choked back in, yeah, it's almost like quality of living in America versus quality of living in Shenzhen or any other major Chinese city at the moment from all the smog. So yeah.
Planets where acid rain is a global and constant occurrence, meaning that roofs have to constantly be reinforced as every square inch of the city exposed is constantly eaten away at by an ongoing, just rain pounding away at everything, people whose flesh burns away when they walk outside. There are death worlds where humans shouldn't live there, but still do for some reason. There's a lot of variety. When you have a million worlds under the control of the Imperium of Man, there's always going to be variety. Now, the reason why I'm getting through all of this is because, in addition to it being like exceedingly far right, it's also miserable for almost all of the things that make it far right, with one caveat, with one exception. The point of Warhammer 40k is that it's miserable. It's literally called, like the Grimdark. They codify Grimdark practically. Everyone, if you write a book about 40k or read a book about 40k, anything, just anything about the media makes it exceedingly clear that it's a horrible place to live in. The opening scroll of 40k makes that clear that there's nothing, the universe holds nothing of hope. That it's just a like.
No, it said nothing of hope. Nope. I had to pause, guys. I had to pause. That is entirely untrue. There is hope in the Imperium, because if they kill or stop the Chaos Gods, that is hope. There is hope that somehow, some way, we'll be able to make it one day. And the idea that the point of the story is, oh, you know, God isn't real, everybody's gonna die, is such a Vaush take. You know, I mean, what else can I say than that?
Every book that was written in its time. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. This is the tale of these times. It is a universe you can live today if you dare, but this is a dark and terrible era where you will find little comfort or hope. If you want to take part in the adventure, then prepare yourself now. I think this is from the 80s. They don't say that in the most recent ones. Forget the power of technology, science, and common humanity. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for there is no peace amongst the stars.
Yeah,
only eternity of carnage and slaughter and the laughter of thirsting gods. That's it. There is only war. So why am I going into all this? Well, the point that I'm laboriously trying to get to is that the universe of 40k fucking sucks. So why are there a ton of far-right people who like to deify elements of the Imperium of Man and use it in the political propaganda that they create?
Because I firmly believe the Grimdark died with the revival of Guilliman. Yes! Thank you! Motherfucker. I just missed something. Yeah. I mean, the revival of Guilliman was like... it was almost like Jesus coming back. The Jesus the rerun, Jesus part 2 of 40k. So, Mom, stop calling me. Yeah. So, the idea that everything is always awful all the time. One thing I can't get, one thing I think the anti-Imperium crowd doesn't get, is that the Emperor is genuinely loving as the Imperium thinks, only, but he was still born immortal. Yeah, he's like the Christian God, but more human and not like Jesus. They are anti-Christian, so he's very anti-Christian. You see, because, you know, in the Bible, there's no loving horsecock is okay section. So, you know, he's not a big fan of that. Yeah, that's why he doesn't like it. Anything else to add? I think that's it.
Create. Why were there so many God Emperor of the United States memes? Why, when you go into a lot of 40k
because it's hilarious
communities, do you see people who talk about the Imperium of Man and use the language of the Imperium of Man as though it was like a cool and good place to live in? You guys have noticed that, right? It's
not the point that it's a good or great place. It's the point that even if it's a shitty place, we are fighting the ultimate evil. That's the point. We're fighting the ultimate evil, and we might win someday. Even if that means everything's shitty right now. We should do everything in our power to make it. I just got a one shot. Yeah, I mean, I have somewhere on my phone where there's just an entire video of Vaush, like, talking about horsecock.
I saw this all the time back in 2016. They photoshopped Donald Trump's head onto the God Emperor of Mankind.
That was the coolest thing ever.
Nice funny memes or whatever. It's like nice LARPing, but like, in the story, this guy failed, right?
He did not. What?
The guy.
He did not fail, and he's also not, like, dead. Hello? It's just so ridiculous. I mean, just
They
wow.
photoshopped Donald Trump's head onto here, failed to control his empire, died in a rebellion, and has to sit
He's
in
not-
while over thousands of years the Imperium of man that he built rots. So why is he being deified? You're trying to say Channers know what
He's the God Emperor. What do you mean?
You see this type of behavior in communities that are
Trump.
friends with 40K, and the first thing you learn about 40K is like the Horus Heresy, which is what tells you what happened here with the Emperor. They know the history. They know that they're deifying Trump by associating him with an icon, where in media, that icon was a failure who rots now on a throne while everything he built dies. My suggestion is that they don't actually care. That the aesthetics of authoritarianism
is he
and
just
militarism
ignoring
are
the
so
fact that
important to our right
Gilliman,
that they don't
like,
actually care
exists
that they're
at all?
borrowing symbology from media that explicitly disagrees with their conclusions. Games Workshop, as shitty of a company as it is, put out a statement affirming their support of Black Lives Matter and saying people who disagree with Black Lives Matter essentially can just fucking leave the hobby for all they care. That caused a lot of people to get angry. They also actually demanded that the formerly known as Arch Warhammer YouTuber...
They're also the people that tried to make Femme Studies a thing and had to backtrack because, like, they lost so many subscriptions. But, you know. I mean, they kind of backtracked. Trump is Christian, the Imperium is modeled after Christianity, correct. Damn. Alright.
now known as Arch, disassociate with their brand because the dude was a neo-Nazi.
Oh!
I forget the details.
He pulled
So,
the N-word
Games
card.
Workshop isn't super far right, and what's more, the super far right empire in the media they produced sucks, and a lot of why it sucks is because it's far right. The worst parts of living in the Imperium are the religious fanaticism, are the authoritarianism, are the
What do you want them
but
to
these are all
do?
the things that people in the far right tend to deify. That's weird. My argument is that for them the aesthetics take prominence over anything else. That even though the actual content of the media they like, and many of them I imagine they do like 40K, even though the actual content of the media they enjoy explicitly criticizes and mocks their politics, they adopt it anyway because they think it's cool. It's the same reason why we just saw Adam Calhoun, who has a United States flag Punisher emblem on his back wall, in spite of the fact that the Punisher is an amoral cop killer, anti-hero, who I guarantee you does not give a single shit about patriotism, okay? It's the same reason why a lot of far-right people like Fallout, even though Fallout, very explicitly in the first two games, and perhaps less so but still in the Bethesda sequels,
Ouch.
is very anti-war and anti-patriotism. If you play the Fallout games,
He's so dumb. Like, the point of the Imperium isn't that it's perfect. The point of the Imperium isn't that it's a beautiful place to live. It's shitty. Just like real life. Real life is shitty. And imagine in the future that you can't use computers because they tried to kill you. Demons are real and they are currently killing everybody. Like, what else would you have? What would you have us do? You know? Yeah.
they're like beating you over the head with the imagery here. Hey, dumb, unintrospective patriotism means the end of humanity.
It's not the end of humanity! Hello? Humanity would be dead without the Imperium. Hold on. Alfaro says, hold on, the Imperium sucks because it's far right. It sucks because it's a galaxy spanning empire besieged on all sides and corrupt within. Yes, it does suck because it sucks because there's so much bureaucracy. It sucks because the Primarchs aren't here. It sucks because, like, we currently aren't doing what needs to be done to kill chaos. That's what sucks. It's the red tape. It's the inability to use what would be good. It's like, oh my... It's frustrating how bad faith this is, and I don't even know what to do.
Dogmatism and fanaticism destroy people, like, but people, they LARP over that, you know?
Without the dogmatism of the Imperium would have been dead, like, over 5,000 years ago. And I don't... Yeah, Vaush would be a Horus supporter. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a Slanesh supporter, though, so...
Oh, they're like, oh yeah, dude, Fallout, better red than dead. Like, you know, why do people so often on the right do this? Well, part of it is because they have really, really, really bad media comprehension. Seriously, conservatives, in my experience, are not great at understanding the messages that media are trying to, like, deliver to you. Even...
That's... Does he understand people can interpret ways in things in more than one way? I don't think so.
Even when it's really obvious? Like, really, really obvious? But even if they do understand the messaging, I think they...
Also sucks because there's little contact between most worlds. Civilized worlds have a hierarchy depending on status. They're so afraid of technology while they use it, they don't create new tech. I mean, they can't make... I mean, we did have highly improved AI and stuff like that, but it literally tried to kill us. So we don't really want to go back and try that again, you know? Yeah.
just like look past it, you know? Like, can I show you something? Like, this is a painting. Now, I think this painting is cool, okay? Without getting too deep into the specifics, it's a painting of a bunch of like armored super soldiers standing in a big cathedral ship.
Say it with me, Vaush. Space Marines. Space Marine. Space Marines. I thought part of the reason why the fear of what? The fear of what now?
Okay, it's cool, right? It's shiny. It is shiny. But what does it represent? Well, to me,
I'm gonna just stop him right there. Adeptus. To me, this represents brotherly camaraderie. This image represents rallying for battle. That's what this image represents for me. But I'm sure he's going to say something retarded. I can say that word. I'm autistic.
What it represents is a kind of larger-than-life, hyperbolized, propagandistic retelling of a military force. You know what I mean?
This isn't even propaganda, though. This would literally happen in the universe rather frequently before battle. Like, it's not like that unique. It's just a really nice painting.
When I see
yeah, fear of AI. I mean, the reason there is fear of AI in Warhammer is because Necrons exist, which are just sentient robots that are trying to kill us all. And the fact that when we had AI, which was AI created by us, it also tried to kill us all.
I see propaganda in every paint stroke, and I like that because it's self-aware. But I think...
So he likes this image not because it gives a feeling of pride, not because it gives a feeling of hope, a feeling of togetherness. It's just he likes it because it's making fun of the people in the painting. And that's funny to him.
A lot of people see this and they see past the propagandizing. They just see glory. But that's all they see. They don't see anything else. To be clear, in the context of the story, the people here in armor, Space Marines, are barely human. They are war-torn, amoral, honor-obsessed, callous.
Hold on. How does amoral and honor-obsessed work in the same sentence? I mean, I guess it can. But they're humans that are genetically enhanced. And God, I hate him so much. He looks at them and he doesn't see, like, people that are made into soldiers to protect humanity. He doesn't see people that are trying to do the best for... Hold on. He doesn't see people that are trying to make the world better. He just sees... Yes, they're called the Emperor's Angels. Thank you, chat. Thank you.
Condescending killing machines who have at best neutral relationships with the rest of mortal humanity. Okay? That's at best.
So, Space Marines have at best a neutral relationship with humanity? Bro, have you... There's these really cool guys. They're called salamanders? I don't know if you've heard of them.
They're essentially, yeah, they're sociopathic killing machines. They're narcissists. They're people too, Vaush. Not all.
Okay. Apparently, all Space Marines are sociopathic killing machines. Forget the
Space Marines don't
salamanders.
be like that. Guys, I like the salamanders too, but you know goddamn well the majority of Space Marines are sociopathic killing machines who would turn on humanity the nanosecond they felt that this.
Excuse me! Okay. First of all, Blood Angels are very fond of humans. Even when they go into the Black Rage. Like, he said that, okay, he said he doesn't care about the salamanders. Space Wolves, they're very focused on packs. They're very focused on keeping together. He's a walking contradiction. Like, it's just so ridiculous. They fight every day to save the Imperium of man. If they could just all of a sudden flip-flop, we'd have a million Horus heresies, not just one. And there'd be like millions more traitor Space Marines. You know? Millions of more heretic Space Marines. But even when faced with like a literal demon, Titus, an Ultramarine, just cut it in half. Like, that is the level of devotion. And the idea that all Space Marines are just a split second away from, like, turning on the Imperium is just so ridiculous. Yes, yeah, exactly. Space Marines care about more common military men, yes, exactly. Like when they help the Cajians in Space Marine 2, correct. Alfarius says, the Ultra Smurfs run an interplanetary government with humanity in the bureaucracy. Yeah, if they didn't give a fuck about humans, and if they were such sociopathic monsters, like, why would they let humans decide shit?
This already happened, guys. This already fucking happened, guys. Come on. I haven't forgotten the Horus Heresy. Also, even the best Space Marine chapters kidnap human children and torture them for like a decade until they're ready to have skin implants and turn into Space Marines. Oh, shh. Okay.
I mean, do you not want us to have Space Marines? Like, what would you have? Do you? Okay.
Don't paint over this. I know they look nice in their armor, okay? But men are men, and these are not the best of them. They're just the tallest of them. That's the point. The point of all this.
So, Space Marines are not the best of men. They're just tall. That's what he just said. God, I'm so glad that I am watching this in 2x speed.
Media is that you can give people as much power as you want. It doesn't make
Pathfinder, I would literally rather break my PC than have a multiplayer stream with Vaush.
The whole point of the 40k story is that the more authority you give people, this does not necessarily correspond to a positive increase in the extent to which they can contribute positively to the world around them. The Space Marines are superhuman, sure, but they're shown to be boastful and prideful and often quite sociopathic. And the Primarchs are all daddy-issue bitch babies. The Emperor himself, the best of humanity, was unable to understand the problems with how he treated the people beneath him. Warhammer 40k is an anti-authoritarian piece of media. A lot of people aren't willing to accept that because they're high on copium and they want to believe that all the glorious propagandizing paintings that they see are meant to be a representation of the tone of the setting morally, as opposed to the tone of the setting aesthetically. But those are two very, 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 very different things.
Do you want the tone of the thing to be... I just can't. He's just... Yeah, just absolutely butchering what Space Marines are.
And I hope you all understand that, right? There's nothing wrong with enjoying that media, by the way. If you like reading 40k and like embracing just the stupid glory of like, yes, we piloted the cathedral ship of the Litany's Litany, 10 trillion men on board, the ship larger than a moon, we steer the ship into the sun and fire the cannon through the like, if you want to read shit like that, have it, fine, jerk off to it. I don't care, have a ball. That shit's fun as hell to read. But recognize ultimately that the media is a satire of politics and a satire of authoritarianism. The only caveat, and I mentioned this earlier, the only caveat there is to this fundamentally is that there's a premise that in the real world is untrue, but in 40k is true. But there's a difference between people who can recognize that premise is non-reality in 40k and people who think that because it exists in 40k, it must exist in the real world. And that is the idea that great terror is justified by external threat. In the real world today, people on the right will justify...
When were they sociopathic and prideful? I don't recall this minus Leandros. That was for a different reason. He was misguided, but he had good intentions, but misguided. Yeah, I mean, I know. He makes my head hurt, too, and we're not even halfway through the video.
Authoritarianism by saying that our civilization is under threat from within and from without. These people are objectively wrong. Far-right governments are more unstable than liberal democracies by any measurable extent, and the idea that the existence of trans people within and Mexican immigrants without are tearing apart our country is ludicrous fearmongering.
What the fuck does Warhammer have to do with trans and immigrants? Hello? Are the trans Slanesh? Like, what the fuck's happening?
So in the real world, when people talk about how we have no choice but to do X, or our Western civilization will fall apart in any moment if we kowtow to these demands, they're wrong. However,
so should we as Western civilization just be like, yeah, socialism's great. Let's forget about all the times that it like killed millions of people, because it's actually a good thing. And the chuds are just too stupid to understand. Right? Is that it? He's gonna bring up
in the universe of
femstotus.
Warhammer 40,000, there is an argument to be made that ruthless, unrelenting authoritarianism and military supremacy is justified because the threats to humanity are real. And in the context of 40k, this is true. This is completely true. Not all the bad stuff the Imperium of Man does is justified, but authoritarianism and military supremacy are necessary parts of self-defense in that universe.
Thank
because when we talk about the Imperium of Man, I haven't talked about the Tyranid, or the Necron, or the Orcs, or fucking Chaos. I haven't talked about any of the big threats that are barreling down on humanity from every side. And if you guys read and keep up with the lore in 40k, you find that humanity is losing all the time, constantly being pushed back further and further. The last big thing that happened in the lore was that one of the most heavily fortified planets in all of the Imperium, called Cadia, got blown up by crashing a spaceship the size of a moon into it, and then a warp storm the size of the galaxy cut the galaxy in half, leaving 2
He said the biggest event in recent history. Is he just gonna ignore Gilliman? Just doesn't exist, I suppose. Yeah. There's no such thing as Gilliman, guys. Imperium's just screwed. So just forget about it. Right? Yeah.
Imperiums, the regular Imperium and the Dark Imperium, half of humanity is now cut off from contact from Terra. They're fucked.
Yeah, they are.
Now in 40k, in that universe, relentless authoritarianism and military supremacy and sending children to work in factories when they're 10 years old might actually be the only way those humans as a species can survive. And guys, for those of you who have read 40k, you agree, right? Not making this up. Humanity is constantly losing. Even with everything the Imperium does, they lose every year. More planets fall. Yeah, it's very fucked. And that's why it's Grimdark. Because it's a...
He's not mentioned Gilliman once, or like the efforts he's making right now that are working. It's like, is it even bad faith if he's just completely ignoring something?
Fantasy universe, where even the worst excesses of human military encroachment can't save us. That's what makes it Grimdark. That there is no hope. That even the worst case scenario, where we bleed away all of our humanity into putting everything towards our military, where we give away all of our rights, everything we have, that's still not enough. That's what makes it Grimdark. And right-leaning people like it because they don't realize that that's satire. They look at that element of 40k and think, wow, you're right! Mexicans are just like the Necrons! Trans people are like Slanesh, and
hey, I did say
Muslims
that.
are corn. And they read that and they...
I didn't say that Mexican... What? How are Mexicans... That's a head scratcher. How are Mexicans... How are they Necrons? Exactly? Why does he think they're Necrons? Why is that the first thing that popped in his head? And then he said Muslims are corn? I don't know where he got either of those ideas. Is he saying it because Necrons sometimes steal stuff? And Muslims are corn because it's a violent Sharia law? Yeah. There is lots of chaos influence. He is right on that one. I'll give him that one.
soy and they cream their little fucking board shorts, cargo shorts with the pockets. That's what they think. Khorne, Khorne. It's a god. He's bad. Here's what Khorne looks like. Okay. Here's what they think Islam is. Okay. Here's Khorne. All right. There we go. Now the thing is, in real life, nothing that looks like this actually exists.
I mean, Vaush, you gotta look in a mirror sometimes, buddy.
Yes, he's basically just Satan. In real life, the painting we're looking at right now doesn't exist. Nothing looks like this in real life.
Satan?
In 40k, something does look like that. It's called Khorne. Blood for the blood god. Wait, there are actual gods? They are. They're in the warp. There are gods in the 40k universe, but they're gods in...
See, look, he explained it so poorly that his chat didn't even realize that there are literal gods because he started the argument that the Emperor was just like, oh yeah, there's no such thing as God, like, there is no God, blah, 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 blah. Like, he's such a bad faith argument that he confuses his own cocksucking chat.
Like they're gods in like the Norse sense, where they're gods in the sense that like they're just incredibly powerful entities. They don't have like a moral claim to the universe. It's just they're really, really strong, you know? Not gods like the Christian God, where it's like they made the universe. More like they were born of power and they're very evil. Yeah, they're like primal elemental forces, basically. And this guy's the primal force of violence. Yeah, gods in power, not in title. Exactly.
Yeah.
There are 4 of them. Maybe. There are 4 of them. Anyway, in real life...
I mean, you could make the argument that there are more than that, because the Eldar pantheon and stuff. But, you know, it's whatever. Imagine if somebody who actually defends chaos actually takes it a step further and says Satan, the main inspiration for such a pantheon. I mean, he basically is. He basically would.
Life, nothing like that exists. In real life, humanity is not being besieged by ancient souls entrapped within living metal armor that were laid to rest on planets millions of years ago who rise now to reclaim the galaxy. In real life, humanity is not under attack from gene seed stealing tyrannid bug hive fleets that blacken the sky with their aerial...
He just combined 2 things. Gene stealers and Tyranids are not the same thing.
Forces. We're not under attack from mushroom orcs. We're not under attack from the concept of mortal decay. We're not under attack from any of this crap, okay? There aren't Dark Eldar raiding our settlements. As I understand, the many political problems that...
Yeah, the orc twin deities. Thank you.
Experiences do not among them include Slaneshi cults. In real life, this stuff doesn't happen.
Now, there are Slaneshi cults in real life. That is true. That one's true. Yes, please, chat. If you enjoy such political commentary, please. This is really taxing. I am recording this for YouTube, which is why I don't have the chat bar up. But I mean, yeah. Just donate if you can. Yeah. I mean, donate if you can. Your name I'll keep private if it's for the cash app as well. So yeah, just toss a few coins, toss a few bits to me, and I'd really appreciate it. I'm trying to get the subathon done because I'm leaving next week. So yeah, thank you.
Versus dark, as far as we know. It's only occupied by us. And in a 40k, where there is only humanity, there's only mankind, all of that need for authoritarianism and militarism wash away. Those of you who are familiar with the setting would know that, right? I mean, you might still have problems with like rebels and stuff, but if there was no chaos and no Xenos, only humans traveling the stars, then not 1,000th of what the Imperium does can be justified. Not even close, because there is no...
That's the point. That's the point. No shit, it couldn't be justified. That's the point. In such an awful place, that kind of militarism, that kind of dogmatic thinking, that kind of cult of personality for the God Emperor, the kind of stuff, everything that's part of the Imperium, that's needed because it's in 40k. No shit, it can't work here because we don't have that here. There aren't Necrons, there aren't Tyranids, there aren't Gene Stealers, there aren't Eldar, there aren't Tau. Like, there aren't orcs. No shit, it doesn't make sense here.
No great existential enemy. And here on Earth today, there's also no great existential enemy. There's just us and gorillas who will one day fight us for supremacy over this planet. A fight that we...
What? There is no existential threat here. I mean, the threat of nuclear waste, like nuclear holocaust, like the thought of people tearing themselves apart because of some ideology that says you should hack off body parts. I mean, there's so many things that we do need to come together to fight.
We will hopefully win, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. So hopefully I've explained my thoughts on the politics of all this. The key element of satire in 40k.
Also, I love that in his mind, the most obvious thing that could happen is Planet of the Apes. I mean, maybe Vaush does have a mirror.
Okay. The thing that justifies the we're all bad guys together theme, the setting, is the idea of an existential external threat, which is something that does not exist in reality, unless you're talking about like solar flares or some shit, you know what I mean, like something like that. But in terms of human action, we are ourselves, and that's it. And that's why I like 40k. I like 40k because I like the Imperium of Man in the few moments where the horrible things that it does are justified. I like 40k because there's something grimly, horrifically interesting about reading a book and thinking, wow, they really didn't have a choice but to nuke that city from orbit, did they? That's just an interesting setting. You know what I mean? It's like anathema. It's like.
So he understands part of it, but he still hates it. I feel like he just hates the fact that the Imperium of Man are actually the good guys in this situation because they need to protect humanity. They need to kill chaos, but I feel like he hates it.
Like a cure to all those young adult novels where like the group of teenagers have to save the universe, but they're too pansy to kill anyone along the way. So you have that point that happens like in the middle of the second book where it's like, yeah, we're saving the world, but we can't kill him, and then they deliberate over that for 3 pages. That does not happen in 40k. That is not a conversation that takes place in 40k. It's just a different vibe, and I like that vibe. And I love Avatar: The Last Airbender, even for its advocacy for pacifism. I would never want anyone who takes 40k seriously to make real-world political prescriptions. You know? You get what I mean, right? I think you get what I mean. That's why a lot of far-right people like this stuff, because they see the grand external threat and they think it's reflective of what's happening today, and also the aesthetics of the old and stuff like that. Yeah.
The aesthetics are fantastic.
And you don't have to be like a responsible 40k player. Have fun with it. Just don't be stupid enough to believe that just because in the magical fantasy universe there are like evil aliens that somehow applies to real-world political decision-making. I can't believe there are people who actually have a shallow enough understanding of the world to actually get.
Thank you, Creview. He really shouldn't have a. He understands it in part, right? He understands it in part, but he still doesn't get the whole message. He doesn't get that your Imperium of Man is still the good guys. So yeah.
Get that from 40k. You know? Games Workshop laughs at you people. Honestly, how can you know? The reason I like 40k is because you like feeling justified and justifiable authoritarian measures. I'm not the one calling exterminate on some planets. I just think it's interesting that there's a universe where things are so fucked that these are decisions that people have to make. What do you mean me justified? I'm not doing it.
I mean, I'd call exterminatus on some. But, you know, I think it could be justified.
Of course, the best 40k stories aren't actually about the big battles and the big fleets and everything. The best stories in 40k are about humans desperately trying to carve out a life for themselves in that hellish world.
I disagree.
Over again. Oh wow, the big fleet parked outside the city. The guy called in from the ground. Dude, there's like aliens here, and they're like super badass, bro. Like bigger than what Star Wars can get away with for sure. And also there's like chaos, and when you look at the demons, they ripple a bit in reality. And like, you know how big our ships are? Bigger than any other currently existing sci-fi property.
He would be a great scene
humans broken, flawed, and traumatized, desperately try to carve out a life for themselves in a world that is utterly inhospitable to human life.
He likes the boring books.
You know? You think there's a way to have those types of media without attracting Nazis like moths to a lamp? Well, for one, we need more left-leaning people getting on the media. You guys should join it. What books should you start on? If you guys want to start on any like books yourselves, the Horus Heresy series is like dozens of books long. It's just kind of an ongoing project, but the first 5 or so books are a good read. The Night Lords trilogy, while it presumes some stuff, is a really, really good series of books. And I like the Eisenhorn trilogy, and it leads into the Ravenhorn trilogy, and then the Beckwin trilogy, which hasn't finished yet. It's just 2 books of the 3.
Of course, he likes the Heresy
like
trilogy.
The thing that I like about the Eisenhorn books is that they're you read from the perspective of an Inquisitor, and an Inquisitor is like a detective, basically, but like amped up 20 times. And there's
that's not what an Inquisitor is.
Faltering humanity of the protagonist and the inhumanity of the world that he finds himself in. Something that I find more gripping than a Space Marine protagonist, in my personal opinion. So get into stuff like that. You can look into tabletop games if you're incredibly wealthy. If you're exceedingly wealthy, maybe if you have a lot of money, so much money, maybe you could consider buying a single Warhammer miniature.
Yeah, that part's true though.
There's also the whole 3D printing thing, which if I talk about it at any length, Games Workshop will delete my channel. But there's plenty of stuff to look in there.
That's true.
At the very least, worth being aware of. So that's nice. It's just fun to get into. You know, there are nice video games. The Total War Warhammer series isn't fantasy, but that's Mechanicus.
He has the view from it, from the lens of his own ideology, not how the lore canonically is. Fucking retarded, man. I mean, yeah, he is. He really is. He genuinely can't understand that there's a reason that the Imperium are the good guys. I mean, I have sympathy for the Eldar saving their dying race because Slaanesh pretty much killed everybody, but other than that, I wouldn't think any
it's like an Xbox
it's
game,
good.
You know? There was the Xbox 360 Space Marine. There's the Dawn of War series, which are RTS games, which everyone loves. There's Battlefield Gothic Armada, which is like a space tactics, like fleet management game, which I like. Mechanicus is a really, really good. Yeah. Warhammer Vermintide is Warhammer Fantasy, but they're part of the same broad IP, so you can look into that. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to play. A lot of really fun stuff to play. Sig Marxism, again, is a left-leaning Warhammer 40,000 subreddit that's worth looking into. And if you're interested in knowing how you can reform these spaces to make them a little bit more hospitable for people
reform? Excuse me. Reform. Huh. It is an interesting way to put it. Reform. So he thinks he's gonna fix Warhammer by infiltrating it and somehow making it better. I feel like he also might love... what's the... Sweet Baby Ink. Yeah, I feel like he's also a Sweet Baby Ink enjoyer. We're fixing the copy. We're fixing it. Yeah.
Get into the medium so thoroughly that you become part of the community, which allows you to have a say and sway over where the community goes in the future. There are now books that are being written that have non-binary characters. Weren't there some non-binary? What were they? Were they from the Assassinatorium? Who were the non-binary characters? They go by they, them, right? Who was it? I think. Oh, it was in one of the books. I haven't read the book. I just heard a segment of it.
I haven't read the book. I mean, I haven't read the book. I just heard of it, and it sounds really cool. That they, them. Whoa, so cool. He doesn't care about moving the story forward. He doesn't care about adding to the lore. He cares that they have the right pronouns. And I mean they as in, like, whoever he decides is right or correct. Yeah. That's good.
Why does that matter? Well, non-binary representation in some of these books can be indicative of the direction the community is moving in. It's interesting, though, that in 40k, there's not really much bigotry in the way we understand it today. Is there, like, racism in the Imperium of Man? I'm sure there is on some planets, but it's not talked about much. Kind of hard to get super angry about black and white people when there are literal fucking aliens, you know? Also, likewise with homophobia. I don't think I've ever heard of gay characters in 40k. I don't know why there wouldn't be. I think some modern stuff sometimes.
Because why, like, especially people on Hive Worlds, like, why would they promote something that lessens the amount of humans that they can have? You know? Like, they're not gonna promote something that stops more humans from being born and has more humans as meat bags to throw at aliens and chaos. They're not gonna do that. He only cares about the ideology that he can put in and people like him put in. Yes, that is true. He is a bread tuber. He even calls himself that, actually. I mean, yeah, so.
You know? Against mutants but not actual races. Yeah, I know. But I mean, in terms of, like, our modern understanding of these problems. In the future, 40k media is probably going to be more racially diverse. They've been trying to make more female and non-white characters in their miniatures, which is really, really nice, I think. Which is definitely a step in the right direction. Their books are probably going to be a little bit more inclusive with the human element, which is nice. Dan Abnett, I think, does this really well. Dan Abnett wrote the first Horus Heresy book, and today he wrote the whole Eisenhorn trilogy, and the most modern trilogy that he's been writing, the Beckman trilogy, has a female protagonist. A female protagonist who isn't even an Inquisitor. She's a regular, well, she's not regular by any means. She's a Knoll, but she's cool. Dan Abnett's done a lot of good writing. A Knoll? She's like an anti-psychic, basically. That's her thing. She's anti-psychic. Knoll, N-U-L-L. The Beckman series is wonderful. The Assassinatorium has a few...
I mean, who gives a fuck?
Holy Emperor!
Thank you. Thank you for the Emperor, indeed. Vixen doesn't affect your reality unless it's Vaush. Yeah, that's why he likes goblin porn. And horsecock porn. You know? Like, people say, like, people have said that the only reason Space Marine 2 is better than the first one is because there's more racially diverse cast. But when I was playing it, I didn't even think about it. I didn't think about it at all. I just thought of them as great characters, like Chiron and Gazdriel. Like, they're just great characters. It doesn't have to do with the fact that he's black, that Chiron's black, and it doesn't have to do with the fact that Gadriel's Asian looking. Like, that has nothing to do with anything. They're just good characters.
Ambiguously gendered characters. Yeah. Well, the more we expose this stuff to a broader audience, the more the Games Workshop company will work to be inclusive. And the more that happens, the more this community becomes available to everyone.
Honestly, Games Workshop is kind of dying out because of what he just said. Like, I don't think he understands that he's literally ruining it for everybody, as well as just the hobby as a whole. People were already drawing, like, painting racially diverse like cast. People were already making, like, you can just paint the characters how you want. I don't know if he understands that properly. Gatekeepers like Nellup aren't doing any failures. I mean, gatekeeping a little bit is good. Because you don't want people like Vaush to come in, but you can't gatekeep it so much that nobody wants to be interested in it at all. That's not the correct gatekeeping, in my opinion.
Everyone, and I think that's delightful. Is it possible for a Warhammer story to have a satisfying happy ending? Oh, I think that Warhammer stories that have happy endings are lovely. Warhammer as a universe cannot have a happy ending. Gotcha, then 209. I guess I should finish.
I mean, it can if we kill chaos.
The Emperor is shown to be imperfect just from the very first book of the Horse Heresy. I didn't talk about it much either while going over all this, but the Imperium of Man is rampantly xenophobic as well. Very, very xenophobic.
Yeah,
like,
it's epic.
As xenophobic as anything can imagine. Like, they would encounter, like, human settlements that have, like, evolved differently and be like, nah, not close enough.
Kill.
Not close enough to us. Goodbye. Farewell.
Yeah, I mean, in a universe where you don't know if people are going to kill you or not, it's kind of a good idea to just shoot first and kill later. I mean, it's a better idea to shoot first, ask questions later. That's what I meant, sorry.
Okay, I think we've talked about this long enough. Those are my thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Okay, well, that was stupid. Yeah.